Welcome everyone to our May Speak, Share, and Learn. We have quite a few guests today, so I'll let them introduce themselves. But I did want to make just a quick announcement for upcoming events in case you are interested. So I will share my screen just for 1 second to show you our upcoming event. So coming up very shortly, in June, actually June 6th, we will be having a very special virtual workshop in lieu of a share and learn. This will be on how to get external letter writers for promotions, how to get them, and how to write them. So I think this is kind of important for everybody who's in a faculty series. It'll be on Thursday, June 6th. So like I said, it is coming up soon since our summer is starting. And then there's all sorts of other fun things that a lot of us will be attending, like the COC Summit, as well as maybe the ASCE conference, etc. Also, if you haven't checked out yet, you can register here. I'll be posting this. I wanted to make sure that we had plenty of attendees for today's event before I post this, but I will be posting this in the upcoming days. The registration is a little bit different from the ones that you typically do here. So it's actually going to go through University of Illinois. So I'll be posting this and you can register through that registration link instead, since it's a special workshop. Lastly, if you're interested, we have our website, beakvirtual.org. This is a great place where if you haven't done so yet, you can join our Slack channel, as well as read up on our resources that we have. We have a member spotlight series, which is a YouTube series of different faculty across the country. I also post our share and learns. So anything you miss, or if you want to go back and look at slides or watch the YouTube, etc., or share it with any colleagues you have. If you heard of anything interesting that they might be interested in, you can check out these links right here. We also host a ton of different resources under our resources tab, both through ASCE, so the ASCE BED, as well as other websites and different funding opportunities, textbook recommendations, etc. So just to try to make a nice one-stop shop for all of us biomedical engineering education community members. So if you want to, you can check out those links. And like I said, I will also post anything we have here, as well as take notes, so that if there's any resources you missed, you can also go look at those as well. And I post them in Slack after the meeting. So without further ado, I'm gonna let I don't know who wants to start, because there are four hosts today. So maybe they can introduce themselves today, because I don't want to go around the line. But this is a very special share and learn, learning about BME-IDEA. Take it away.
Thanks, Christine. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk with this group, and also really appreciate your efforts in organizing our community in this way. So thanks so much for that. So we actually are going to sort of introduce ourselves throughout the presentation. So that's kind of, we're going to share a little bit of our interaction and how we participate in this organization called BME-IDEA, which is what we're here to talk about today. Some of you might be totally new to this organization. I think some have been involved in the past. The common theme between Sabia, Aaron, and Eric and myself, about two and a half years ago, Paul Yock, who's the founder of this organization, reached out to us and asked us to be a part of sort of the next generation of this planning committee and thinking about the future of this organization. And one of the big things that we've wanted to incorporate is, including more people and newer folks into the organization. So we have a few slides we're going to share, and then we're also going to just spend some time hopefully meeting you all as well. So we'll have some time for discussion. It looks like we're able to see it. So here we're going to be introducing a little bit about BME-IDEA and how we're trying to empower and connect design educators in biomedical engineering. So the agenda is, we'll tell you a little bit about the organization now celebrating in 2023, the 20 years of existence. We'll tell you and introduce ourselves through some of our stories and engagement with this organization over the past several years. We also have a white paper coming out that will preview about the organization, and then talk about what probably many of you are interested in terms of how to get involved, and meet you all at the end. So what is BME-IDEA? The acronym comes from Biomedical Engineering, Innovation, Design, and Entrepreneurship Alliance. So that's where the BME-IDEA comes from. The first meeting was, again, a little over 20 years ago in San Francisco, organized by some of the folks listed here, Paul Yock, Paul King, Christine Kurihara, Phil Weilerstein, and Jack Linehan. I think many of us are familiar with these folks as being important contributors to innovation, entrepreneurship, and design in biomedical engineering. And they kind of came together realizing that a lot of the meetings that they were participating in weren't necessarily filling a need for them in terms of being design educators and introducing students and faculty to this process of innovation. So this has kind of transformed into the organization of BME-IDEA, which consists of over 100 faculty and staff from universities across the world that are teaching undergrads, grad students, post-grad, outside the classroom kind of training programs that are focused specifically on medical device and health technology innovation. And the community comes together usually once a year or once every other year to basically come together, discuss best practices, common challenges, and brainstorm new directions in this space of biomedical engineering innovation education. And historically, this usually occurs the day or two before the Biomedical Engineering Society meeting, so that we really kind of tag onto that meeting so folks can travel once to those things. So why don't you just kind of introduce ourselves by sharing about who we are and our interactions with this organization. So maybe I'll go with Aaron first since you're on the left, and then I'll go after you. So Aaron, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Thanks, Katie. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Kyle. I am a professor of the practice at Duke University in the Department of Biomedical Engineering. So one of the things, like Katie said, we want to share with you all were kind of our backgrounds with being involved in BME-IDEA. And I had my first BME idea way back at the early stage of my career. I think it was maybe in 2010 or 2011. I was just starting out at Columbia University, and I went to this meeting with a colleague who was co-teaching engineering or BME design with me at the time, and it was. I mean, it was awe-inspiring being in the room with Paul Yock and all these folks, the people who worked on the biodesign book and guided what I think are a lot of our efforts in teaching in this space. So while it was very intimidating, I mean, that was the start point of learning more about how you could evolve the design education, as well as feeling a better part of this community. And that's what allowed me to build myself up as a design educator. So Katie, I'll throw it back over to you.
Thanks, Aaron. So my name is Katie Reuther. I have two roles at University of Pennsylvania. One is I lead a center across the university that supports faculty and staff in developing medical devices. And then I also have a faculty role in bioengineering where I teach students and include them in this process also. And so I've been kind of in this space for about a little over 10 years. And my first meeting of the BME-IDEA was in 2016. And like Aaron, this was sort of my introduction and kind of became my compass and guidepost for sort of how I approach design, innovation, entrepreneurship education with my students. Was fortunate at the meeting. This was in Minneapolis at University of Minnesota, the first BME-IDEA meeting that I attended, and again got to kind of learn from some of the gurus like Paul Yock about how they're educating and including students and faculty in this process of entrepreneurship education. And so, really one of the main things that I feel that this organization has provided me with was, people that I can learn from, peers as well as senior colleagues, but also a real sense of community. And that's something that we'll talk about a little bit later on, this idea of a community of practice where we can share best practices, learn from one another, and hopefully bring those things back to the classroom. And there are some things that I learned in that first meeting that I still include and incorporate in my teaching with students that I'm teaching now at the graduate level. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric now for his intro.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Richardson. I'm a professor of the practice in biomedical engineering, like Aaron, at Duke University, and real privilege to be here today. So my background, I actually started my career at Medtronic, working in industry, and then about a little over a decade ago, transitioned to teaching first at Rice and now at Duke. Really, BME-IDEA was a wonderful community of educators that helped me make that transition. So my first meeting was within a few months of making that transition from Medtronic to Rice, and was nice to kind of hear from different people's perspectives about how they incorporated very kind of industry-minded principles into their academic teaching and in their academic world. So it's been a great community, and I teach design and entrepreneurship here at Duke now, and still leverage this group of folks for ideas and to kind of keep up to date on things. And I'll turn it over to Sabia.
Hi, thanks so much, Eric. Hi, everyone. My name is Sabia Abidi. I'm an assistant teaching professor at Rice in bioengineering, and it's a pleasure to be here speaking to you today. I know some of you here. So Eric, for those of you that don't know, Eric used to be at Rice and teaching capstone, and now I'm teaching capstone. So I'm doing one of Eric's many roles, but I'm the newest member of the BME-IDEA group, in the sense that I attended the first workshop last year. And immediately I was struck with the warmth and the willingness to help each other. I felt like what's truly special about this group is that everybody is very focused on pushing the field forward and open to sharing ideas and sharing resources and sharing insights. And, oh, I tried this, what do you think? So it's I feel like it's an echo chamber here, but I feel like that sense of community is very strong. And you feel like a strong sense of identity coming to these workshops. And so it's a beautiful experience for me, and I hope to have everybody, all of you, involved if you're not already involved.
Great, thanks, Sabia. So yeah, we're just going to go through a couple more slides, and then we're going to kind of open it up for discussion. So the theme here is, again, that this is a place for folks that are interested in design education, entrepreneurship education, to come together, learn from one another, and feel connected as a community. You know, we talk about things we do in the classroom, outside the classroom, but also, you know, pathways for promotion for folks with these interests and passions. And so a lot of great opportunities and networking as well. So kind of just to give a snapshot, you know, each year, these are some of the venues that we've been in. Again, I think all of these are associated with the Biomedical Engineering Society conference timing. So usually we try to attach to those meetings to make it easy for folks to attend. And one thing that really has evolved, which has been awesome, is this international presence of the BME-IDEA community in Europe and Africa and South America. There's also Asia Pacific that was, you know, pictured there, a recent kind of effort in meeting those groups with BME-IDEA. And so a lot of great collaborators, and we're lucky that many of them are involved. I think even some are on this call today, and will be involved, you know, particularly in this next meeting coming up as well. So the main goals our organization has is to, you know, share our experiences, best practices, talk about the different challenges and opportunities that we face, and then in some cases create tools and resources that we can share with one another to really enhance what we're delivering inside and outside the classroom to our students and our communities. And so I just wanted to turn it back now over to Eric, who's going to talk a little bit about kind of who BME-IDEA is.
Thanks, Katie. So when we were kind of handed the reins to the BME-IDEA program, as any good designer would, we talked to our stakeholders. So one of the things that you'll hear about shortly is a white paper we're putting together, which will explain more of these results. But we wanted to understand our community, what folks were thinking, what they felt were their strengths and weaknesses, and kind of what they wanted out of this community. So we did a relatively short survey over the course of last year, and just sharing a couple of those key results. First off, our community itself is made up of different types of institutions and different types of roles within those institutions. We're split between public and private universities, and many of us are on kind of teaching tracks. Some of us are more on the research, but most of us have kind of both feet in both worlds of research and teaching. If you want to go to the next slide, Katie. One of the things we're very interested in is kind of understanding where our challenges are and where our strengths are. So a lot of the group felt that we're doing a pretty good job in terms of, you know, building things and design and innovating in our classrooms. Documentation, perhaps our students don't love it, but we're pretty good at teaching it. and we have access to experts being in university settings. Maybe a few things that we felt we could improve on are around teaching DEI in design. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Also, what happens to our projects when the students leave. We really obviously are interested in the education of our students, but also would love to see some of these projects move forward. And that's something that many of us struggle with. And then on the next slide, we wanted to ask our community members what they are interested in talking about, and kind of look at what overlaps with where we see our strengths and weaknesses. So course logistics, this is something that I know, especially during the summer, as we look to the fall, all of us are thinking about. So sharing best practices about how we scope projects, how we teach documentation, how we manage teams in these kind of large and somewhat elaborate courses that many of us run. This is something that we spend a lot of time discussing in our program. Also, how do we commercialize our products is something that people are interested in talking about. And global health is a common theme. And there are a number of others here. DEI and generative AI have been two topics that we talked about in our last meeting. We also did a series of interviews that in which these topics surfaced, and we've had a lot of productive discussion on these topics.
Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of a teaser on the white paper, we've submitted a white paper, so hopefully, fingers crossed, that will be coming out soon. But Eric did a beautiful job of summarizing the survey, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to the historical summary. And so really in this white paper, we tried to capture a lot of the insights and all the sort of intelligence and wisdom that was shared in the meeting last year for the entire community. And so we start with the historical summary. And in that historical summary, if you can go to the next slide, we were lucky enough to have Lynn Denon of Stanford kind of walk us through the entire BME-IDEA timeline. Katie touched on sort of the historical aspect of where the whole BME-IDEA came from, but it was basically from an unmet need that was identified that, look, we have all of us design instructors, our needs are not being met by society meetings. Let's do something to solve this problem. And Lynn talked through the early value of these meetings, forming this sort of larger community, and then thinking more about the output. So what would BME-IDEA create that would be valuable for everybody? This included a website, a white paper, and then of course you guys know about the debut design competition with VentureWell. And finally, we end this section of the white paper with international growth. That's really, it's beautiful to see all across the world, as Eric talked, Katie and Eric talked about, just all over the world. Next slide, please. Yep. So the snapshot summary. With the snapshot, what we had was next slide. Sorry, Katie. Yeah, with the snapshots, as Eric talked about, we prioritized 4 different areas that the community really wanted to hear from, whether it was course logistics, commercialization, DEI, and global health. And we had stars and just up and coming people from the community talk about these areas. We picked some of these. Of course, there were 5 minutes, so they were short. They were meant to be short, and they were meant to be something that you could, very actionable. So something that you could maybe pick up and try in your class. You can see that we had some on DEI, on AI, on FDA design control, and we're hoping to do the same thing again this year. Next slide. The next section of the white paper, we share the insights from roundtable discussions. Again, we selected the same topics, so course logistics, commercialization, DEI, and global health. And we had questions pre-selected for these topics that we had everybody just sort of self-select where they wanted to sit and discuss these ideas, discuss these questions. How did they approach these problems? What did their university tend to do? And then we had someone scribe, write everything down. And this is what we tried to capture in this white paper so that everybody can learn from these resources. Next. Yes. Okay. The final section of the white paper is really the brainstorming summary. And this was a really fun part. We like active learning. So we had everybody walking around the room with Post-its, sharing their ideas on topics like what should BME-IDEA be trying to accomplish? How do we expand and support the community? And then how do we promote and support university collaboration? And there are other topics as well. So we had these types of Post-its there, and we've captured that in text in the white paper for everyone to learn from.
All right, and
Yeah.
I think I get the very fine job of concluding our discussion and trying to motivate you all to come join us for BME Idea 2024. So I'm not a great salesman, but I imagine with this community, people will be kind of interested in doing this anyway. So the 2024 meeting will be taking place on October 22nd and 23rd. BME Idea meetings generally precede the BMES annual meeting, hopefully making it very convenient for you folks. And we are in the same location as the BMES meeting. So it's basically starting a day before people would normally arrive and register for BMES. This year, we've got the privilege of extending our activities over a day and a half instead of just kind of constraining them to one day. So I've identified them as day 0 and day 1 here. On day 0 will be largely kind of a welcoming and networking set of activities. We are working with our partners and friends at Johns Hopkins to allow people to take tours of the design and the robotics space at the university. So we'll be hosting our guests there. And then we'll be having kind of a more active dinner. We're not planning to have a sit down meal, but instead have an opportunity for us to eat and to talk and to share what we've been doing over the past year and what we hope to achieve out of this meeting. Our day 1 starts bright and early on October 23rd, which is kind of the first official day of BMES. Once again, we'll be engaging in some networking activities, but this will also be a highly active and dynamic set of discussions. We'll be having panel discussions, roundtables, and snapshot presentations again. I'll talk in a few moments here about kind of you folks getting involved with the snapshot presentations. We think we've got a pretty interesting set of discussions we are hoping to have. We're going to do a session that is focusing on output from educational research and activities. We are planning to have a number of international stakeholders visit us and present some of their work and how we might get involved and start forming partnerships with our fellow design educators abroad. It's pretty apropos that Christine was mentioning early on about kind of getting letters written and things like that, because we are in fact going to have a session that deals with kind of promotion and teaching lines and things like that. So we're thinking along the same pathways here. So we think we put together a good set of activities that will best serve our community. Next slide, please, Katie. As I mentioned, though, we want to be really responsive to the things that are interesting to our community, right? We don't want this just to be us kind of directing what we think is interesting to you folks, but instead kind of receiving materials from you and using those to make sure that BME Idea is a dynamic and an inclusive and a responsive community. So what we are soliciting here is kind of feedback from different persons on topics of interest that you might want to see included in our BME Idea meeting. And we'll take a look at what sort of common themes might come up here and make decisions about how these might be manifested and might show up as snapshots that we might call upon you to lead these sorts of things. So we had this vision when we came together as the folks that are steering this committee that while we would like to guide things, we definitely want this to be something that we are bringing in newer folks to the teaching community and kind of making progress here and advancing the ball of what we're doing as design educators and not just making this a session where we get together every year and commiserate about the same things. So along these lines, Katie, next slide, please. For those of you that want to get involved, there are a couple of different mechanisms by which you can do so. The registration form for the meeting will be going live in the next few weeks here, June of 2024. So we hope to get a lot of people joining us for this meeting. In fact, we have a vision for this kind of growing year after year. However, if you want to be involved in other ways, obviously there's our website as well as our Slack channel in which we're kind of sharing the sorts of things we are doing as the BME Idea community. So we strongly encourage you to engage in both of these opportunities to talk to us, and we very much hope we'll see you in Baltimore on the 22nd and the 23rd.